Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming, and this is KSP, and yeah, this is not one that has actually really been very popular on the channel as such, and lots of people have done KSP, but I'm just doing this because I tend to play this still a lot each weekend. I tend to go into KSP, have a bit of a relax, build some ships, kill some Kerbals, and basically have a bit of fun. It's like a RTS game for me, but no enemy except myself. Anyway, I decided to give myself a challenge, just as something different from the depths, which will still be the main one. This will be just like a weekend element, and I wanted to look at history, but to look at the history, I didn't want to do it in standard Kerbal. So you'll notice in the background, the planet that's revolving around here is not Kerbin. So I'm running version 1.8 with quite a lot of mods in the game at this moment, and the intention is to run a new system using Copernicus, and it's the Galileo Planets Pack, which is quite well supported, and they're doing an update for the latest version, and hopefully once they make one that works in 1.9 and Copernicus works in 1.9, I'll move over to that, but 1.8 at the moment. So I'm going to be running a lot of mods, but nothing that's game breaking, and in general it's stockish components with a few changes, but nothing overly powered at the beginning anyway. They're all fairly standard. There is a couple of bits at the beginning which make an unkerbled start, is one of the patches, which just helps a little bit. Anyway, I'm also want to run this on hard mode, so I've got to think about keeping my Kerbals alive, testing and doing all those great things, and almost in some ways emulating what NASA and the various space agencies, SM and USSR, etc. went through on their space systems. So we're going to start a new game, and I'm going to call it Gal System, and we're going to give ourselves a little flag. Which one should we go for? Of course, let's see, where have we got? Yeah, we'll go for the United Kerbin Space Agency, and difficulty we're going to set hard, but I am going to change a few things here. I am going to allow reverting and quick loading because of Kraken and the too much of a potential for basically crashes. So we will allow that. We'll have the COM network under advanced, level up immediately on the Kerbals, all of the part pressures, G-forces and Kerbal G-forces, so that's increasing. We must have a signal and plasma blackouts, and we'll allow action groups rather than just having to rely on the astronaut complex to be upgraded. We'll have them in from the start. Now, as you can see, there's quite a few mods here. Most of them I don't think I'll be changing. The one thing is contract configurator, because I'm going to use a different system for earning money. We'll have some historical Kerbal kind, won't like that. ScanSat, where Strategia is a system that's used inside the for earning money. We won't have the collect science. We won't have any of the part testing. Grand Tour. We'll have recovery. Won't have satellites because we need to do those. They will be part of the missions we've got, and survey and tourism. So we have got some contracts here which we can use and we'll have, but a lot of them I'm turning off at this moment because we're, as I say, different way of earning money. Another big area is we're using Kerbalism. So Kerbal Death is going to be potentially in here due to not outfitting the craft correctly. Let me just see if there's anything else I need to do. Launch numbering just for there. I don't think research bodies. Yep, research bodies on. So research bodies means I won't see all the planets. I've actually got to go and find the planets, and I loaded it in another test one just to make sure everything worked. Other than that, I actually haven't looked at the planet, so I don't know what's going to be coming up, which is going to be interesting. We have got scrapyard and stage recovery, and state funding is the main way we're going to use for earning money. But we'll have a look at this. I'm going to say before I start this one off, I was hoping to use one called Planet Diversity, which further randomized the planets, their orbits, etc. each time, well, not each time, but when you start a new game. But it was crashing a lot and gave me problems. So we're going to have to just go with this Galileo pack. Anyway, let's start up this particular bit save. So the first window we are greeted with in this build is for one of the main mods I've added, is one called state funding, where instead of getting money from contracts, you basically join a space agency, for want of a better word, and you get a budget, and your budget is going to be depend upon things like how many spacecraft you have, how many satellites, have you done good things, like set new records, landed new places, and you get minuses for if you kill Kerbals or destroy ships. So yeah, we have to be careful, for want of a better word. Now there is various sort of funding versions you can use here, which we can go for everything from. Now the USK is basically the NASA's type of US funding type system. The USSK is a more of a Russian style budget, where it's state funding, very not really worried about public. You've got a United one where you get lots of money, but it's a bit of both. All the way through, there's one which is obviously very much like SpaceX, and a few other ones which are very much like, where is it, this one here, which is like a commercial one, which is a Lockheed Martin and Bloating Aerospace, obviously linking over. But we're just to go with the standard USK, because I want to look at the way that NASA did it as historically. So we're going to select that. So what that means, if I go into the review, you'll notice all of these zeros, percentages here, because we don't have anything up. Now each quarter, so we got 40,000 funding. Now each quarter, depending on our public opinion, state confidence and benefits here, we will get a budget to spend. So yeah, we've got to do things to keep money coming in. If we want to spend money on a big project, we have to do lots of smaller things potentially to make the money come in on the next budget. So the planets, as you can see, we have a different Kerbal Space Center here. Center is Kerbal Space Center. There is also some extra launch pads we will be able to open up in the future to be able to have other aircraft, and also a alternative landing strip runway that we could use for landing aircraft. And the solar system itself, if we go to the tracking center, so this is, well, it's actually called Gale, but I must be to call it Kerbin, even though it is actually Gale. And this is it's the same size and set up as Kerbin. You'll notice there's more places, and the land is somewhat different. This is the Kerbin, the Kerbal Space Center, and the Gale Space Center, which is the other two areas you saw. And there is also some other launch sites we can use. If we go to them, we can use them to launch aircraft from. So, sorry, aircraft or spacecraft, etc. Now, one thing also is the Kerbal Space Center is not exactly on the equator. It's actually a little bit off from center. So we'll have to allow for that in our craft launcher. We're not going to launch directly on the equator. Now, the system itself, we're seeing IOTA, which is basically a small, the equivalent of the Mun or the Moon, but at a slightly different altitude, and it's got a few different areas to look at. The actual layout of the surface you can see is different, so we didn't have to explore there. Then we have SETI, which is basically a Minmus, but again we're going to have to go and have a look at it and investigate more. And then going out, we have our main sun, and that's about it at the moment, because we've got to go and find we do have, this is a binary system, so we do have another sun out there. It's a weak sun, but it is a sun nonetheless. But generally, yeah, we're going to have to go and find the other planets in the system using research bodies. Now, yeah, hopefully we'll make sure that it is actually working okay and we're not like missing something. I'll do that offline, but at the moment, first of all, we're going to look at getting some contracts running. So other part, quickly before I get contracts running and start building first ship, is research and development. So the tech tree. Yes, we have a largest tech tree going all the way up into extreme high physics, and that is because we have the interstellar extended tree here, which gives us the ability to bring up some very high powered rocketry, but only at the higher levels, and we're going to need a lot of science. Some of these branches need 20,000 science to be able to open up, and we'll look at that as that's the long-term aim. I want to complete this, but we're also starting on a unkerballed start. Now that means we've got to do a lot of as they had to, finding out about the atmosphere using sounding rockets, i.e. not sending Kerbals up at the start. We've got to do a lot of things without actually having any Kerbals available. So we just got to send it up, get readings, and then eventually we'll put Kerbals up. But we're going to have to make sure they don't, they're safe, shall we say. So let's go back to the Space Center, and we're going to go to Mission Control. So we're going to see what's available. So first of all, sounding rockets. We're going to take this mission for sounding rockets, which is pretty simple, gets us a little bit of science, and we've got to get up to 50,000 meters, which is going to take us a little while to get to. But also we have just a simple one, which is just leave the surface. So yeah, that's not too bad. Now we're going to go and build our first rocket. So the first rocket that we're going to build is effectively going to be with what I have available, a version of a V2 rocket, which was the German rockets used in the latter part of the war, or mid to the latter part of the war. Made by Germany, the von Braun, etc., and Peenemünde, and they used it as a rocket, which was a single stage. It went about 300 kilometers, and some of the later versions even went as far as about 700 kilometers range. But at the end of the war, there was a lot of parts taken by the Allies and various other troops, and there's one point where there was 300 train carriage loads of parts from Peenemünde were transferred to the US. And from that, they built, I can't remember the exact number, it's like 57 odd working V2s and lots of other ones and more eventually. And these were used as initial tests to go up into test basically the atmosphere, limits of space, and do the first testing of space travel from the late 1940s, well, yeah, even 1946, so latter part of 1940s, into the 50s, and then other sounding rockets started coming up, like the Aero B, UK had the Dragon, Skylark, and other places had the Dragon. There was lots of other sounding rockets were used up until the 80s to do lots of atmospheric testing. Now the US wasn't the only one that had V2s in this situation. The USSR also, because they captured Peenemünde, they got the people there to rebuild the facilities, and then the whole facilities were taken apart and moved over into Russia. And they started their V2 project, and also even the Chinese managed to get plans for V2s and managed to build their own versions for initial testing of rocketry. So on this initial test, we'll be looking at getting one up a rocket just to get the basic off the pad and test the basics of our rocket system. So you may have seen in the building I used a simulation to be able to test the rocket, and that actually did cost me currency to actually run the simulation as well. So that is a cost to do this. So there is a cost associated with running simulations. I'm also using construction time. So I've set it to construct, and it's now going to be constructed in 7 days. So first thing I've got to do is build the ship before we can launch it. So the ship is built, and now we can roll it out, and the rollout time is only 1.5 minutes on this particular ship. It's only a small ship, rocket shall I say, I keep on saying ship, rocket, I'm used to from the depths. And now that it's on the launch pad, we can now say launch. Now even though we are on the launch pad, we are gathering data, and the way that data is gathered using Kerbalism is it's not instantaneous. So here you'll notice that we've got 1 minute and 26 seconds and counting down to actually get a temperature scan. So it's building that up in the buffer of the probe using its capacity, and once it has built up, you can see at the top here it's only a 3.26. Once it's complete, it will get transferred to the Space Center, and basically we'll get a small amount of science for it. So this does make it a little bit more difficult in some of the if we've got something which is a very fine tolerance, we're going to have to build ships to be able to get to that exact point, not just pass through it and quickly get a scan. Some of the other scans we will be doing later on actually take quite a while to run, so that's an extra cost, shall we say. Finally, these do happen in the background, so you haven't got to worry about running these and out of warp, etc. So it's a nice little add-in. I quite like it. Downside is these can take up a lot of electricity. So we've got the credits down below, we can see what's happened there, and now we're ready for our proper launch to actually just get up into the into space a while, and we can just make sure everything's going to run. Now on this ship it's a fairly standard, the only thing is I have no controllable surfaces on this, so I'm using spin stabilization on the top canards to put this into a spin to effectively keep it going straight up. We have no SAS or other, so it's now getting more telemetry and temperature scans. And hopefully they will transmit, or at least partially transmit, before it comes down again effectively. But it's staying relatively straight, not as straight as would be ideal, but at least it is straight to a degree. Some more telemetry received. So that's a few more science. So this is how we're getting the science here, and we have, I think, done the taken off from, you know, our first launch, so that also gives us a little bit of science. And then we're just going to go to our apoapsis to get our highest point. So we've got some world firsts here which have given us a nice amount of cash, so that's one way of getting cash. And also we've done the leave the launch pad, so that's also going to give us some. Now unfortunately I'm going to have to let this crash into the ground. We have no parachutes or other things at this moment, so we're just going to have to hope we get any temperature or other scans as it's come down, and it doesn't destroy the base too much. So not going to use the reverts, just go back to the Space Center, because that's the way this is going to work. I definitely leave the reverts there for well, I don't actually have to use it. I think I need it for the sim system, but anyway, I could disable that in the options as well. Anyway, we've got a little bit of science. We've got 6 science now we can use, so let's see if we can make a slightly better rocket. If we could get some, yes, this winglet. So basically we're going to research that winglet, and first of all we have to research, because this also takes time. It's not researched yet, so if we go back into our facility and then into Kerbal construction time, under tech we've got 4 days to wait for that to be research. So let's get that done. So we've completed the research. We will see if there's any new missions available. Reach the upper atmosphere, 18,000. We were almost there before. So we've got 2 at the moment. We've got 50,000 and 18,000. So I think we need a bigger rocket. So we have a more powerful rocket just being built in the VAB, and then we can roll that out. So it's our version B of the V2, and there was a few updates that they used on the V2 to create these more powerful V2s that went all the way actually out into space, and came back with some of the first pictures from space of the Earth. So another mod I am using is remote tech, because I like the fact that it adds the delay and the fact you have to create lots of signal relays, etc. But I am using the flight computer because I think it's fair that any probe would have a basic flight computer, and in this case I'm only using it almost as an inertial navigation. So it's got a simple pitch, heading and roll, and that's I manually doing it. I'm not using the other functions. Later on, when I have to do more advanced stuff, I'll be using KOS, but we'll come across that when the time arises. So let's just see if we can get up to that 15,000. Now, because I've now got some aerodynamic surfaces, I don't have to put spin stabilization, but we've got it still on a fairly narrow pitch at the moment, only 88. Might need to be a bit more actually. We might end up landing back, but I was hoping to get a little bit of distance. Might have to change that to a little bit higher to get a bit of distance on our thrust. But yeah, we got. This is sort of two-stage. The centre rocket will fire for a little bit longer after the initial acceleration. I think we're going to get up to the 15. Will we get to the 50? I don't think we're going to get to 50. And we're starting to overspeed, so we'd have to cut down the thrust to weight at this height, I think, if we want to go higher. Otherwise, we're just not going to... You know, we're basically overspeeding. I'd already cut the thrust down a little bit, can't show it here, but I had cut it down a little. And I think we might just get our apoapsis up to 100, oh crikey, 152. We are going to get up into space. So we got the first sounding rocket, we got the reached upper atmosphere, and speed records. And I'm actually going to quickly see if, using CapCom, if we can get across the radiation belt. Which I think will be higher, but let's see if we can get that by taking that particular mission straight away using CapCom. I don't think it's going to give us that one. I think we'll have to do another flight. But we're getting telemetry, 1.2 credits, excellent. But now it's going to be a matter of just watching this come back down. Again, we haven't got any parachutes on this craft, so we're going to lose it. It's, yeah, we're going to have to do that a bit more than 88. It's going to hit water, luckily, but it was a bit close to the island coming down for these sounding rockets. But we'll let that one just dive into the sea. And go back to the Space Center. But we did get some science there, which is good. So we've now got 14.8 science. So let's see what we can do. Let's see what we've got. Crash the radiation belt. So that's going even higher. Available V2 rocket. Okay, so this is another one where we have to get. So this was the A4, which was a true long range rocket and actually did go into space. So we've got to do escape atmosphere and reach space and enter into. I can't do that one at the same time. We'll have to do that one separately. So okay, we've got 2 more missions we can do, and we're then possibly have to go. Actually, I think we can do it almost with that same rocket. I think we might need a little bit more booster though. Let's first have a look what's available now for R&D with our 14 points. So we could, this could be interesting, get more science could be a good start, because more science for our sounding rocket, or we could have a bigger rocket. Actually, we can go for both. So if we research the rockets, and here for the science, and then after that we should be able to get the survivability, which means parachutes. So on the pad we've got our 3rd generation of the V2 rocket, with the larger thumper rocket in the centre and the smaller ones on the side. So we're just going to see if that can get us up high enough. We have also got the new gravimetric and barometric sensors to run on this one, which have already done a load of sensors on the ground. So now we'll see what happens if we send them up into space. They do take a long time to get their data, but hopefully they should return some interesting information. It's all more science, which is the important bit. Now the smaller rockets have now cut out, but we don't have any decouplers available at this moment, so they're going to carry on the ride through with the main solid motor, and we'll just see how far that will get us into space. I think it's going to get us quite high. Will it get us into those radiation belts, which is the key we're after? If not, we'll have to upgrade it a little. So looking at the map, we're going to get to an apoapsis of 160k. So let's see if that gets us high enough and we have a world first, so that's cool. New strategies, and we did the V2 rocket, which was get above 50k, I think it was, or into space, so that's good. I don't think we can quickly... Could we do this and quickly get this into space? I don't think it's going to give it to us. Oh, it did us that one as well. I was able to get that one. That's going to save us a bit of time. So we got the... It's just, can we get the radiation belt? I don't think we're high enough. We're going to have to get even higher to get the radiation belt mission as such. And we crash land into the sea and go back to the space center. That was inevitable, to be honest. With that, we obviously didn't have any parachutes, and we got a fair bit of science and also money for that one, which is good. And now we've got, let's see, what active one we've got. Cross the radiation belt, I think we need to do. And we've got Sputnik and Stable Orbit, which are going to be the same. So I think we'd need to do the Radiation Belt one first as a test for the Sputnik. So what we'll do is look at what research and development we can use, because what I think we might need to use is this new liquid-fueled engines to get that. And also we're going to need these decouplers. So we'll research those. And have we got? We haven't quite got enough still to get the parachutes. Is there anything else we might need? We might need some structural parts, so I'm going to research those in case we need them. And that's only one research point, so we'll get them anyway. And here, some other ones for one research point. Okay, so that's got all of our basics, I think, for the moment. Pity I couldn't get those. So we'll do the radiation belt, I think, and head towards the Sputnik, which is basically the first putting a satellite into orbit. So that will be on the next episode, where I will be looking at building a larger craft than we've done already, although I am limited as to what size I can put into this building at the moment. But we'll be looking at doing a multi-stage rocket, maybe a V3. There was another version like the London Cruiser, which was basically a V2 but multi-stage. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll look at that in the next episode. If you liked it, please leave a like and comment down below. If you think that you'd like to see me carry on this and see how I can visit all of the places, there's going to be a lot of math going into this system, a lot of testing, because I don't know what all those planets are. I really don't. I've tried to stay away from the Galileo Planet Pack overview, all of any Delta V maps or anything else like that, so that I will have to go and find them and basically find the planets quite simply, and then do probes to them to test what the surface is like before I send a Kerbal there, etc. So yeah, I'm personally going to be carrying on this one mostly just once a week. Potentially over the weekend I'll have a bit of a play on it, put the video up on the Monday, etc. That will be my routine for this particular KSP ones. But as always, leave comments down below, and above all else, keep playing the game and have fun.